my good point. I actually have to ask Maui a question because I don't actually 100% remember last week's episode. And God forbid I open a YouTube video while we're talking now. That'll be a masterpiece. So anyway, so I'll ask Maui. On the last episode, did we actually big up Aurora?
No,
I don't think so. Because in that case, I'm going to choose to do it now because people will know I'm often a critic of Aurora. Especially, I actually still think I won't do too much now because it is the good point. I still don't like their IGL. I still think he's overrated as fuck. But you know what? It doesn't actually matter, and here's why it doesn't matter. Because the beauty of CS2, and it still does have a bit of this, is at the end of the day, CS2 is actually. It's why I actually think. The main people who complain, this is a key point to notice. Notice that the main people who complain about CS2 is just people who are playing the game. It's fans who are playing Premier matchmaking. They don't like something about the engine. Notice almost no one ever complains about the visual aspect of the game. Nobody thinks watching CS2 is worse than CSGO. And I actually think, by the way, teams like Aurora are actually one of the reasons why that is the case. Because I do think in the same sense, I saw the whole rise, because I'm that old, of MMA, right? I used to watch MMA where you had to be a weirdo on like obscure websites. I mean, the joke was back then it was awesome. You didn't need UFC Fight Pass. You could actually just look up every illegal fight on the internet. It was just all there. Then it all got taken down. You have to actually pay for it. I do now, Dana. It's okay, mate. Don't come and get me. But back then, the point is, it was a really nerdy, like niche sport. You know, in fact, back then, if you talked about MMA, people really did do all the fucking boomer shit. It's human cockfighting. This is brutal. They thought it was like Van Damme blood sport or something, where you break the guy's arm or something on purpose. Like they all had all these crazy ideas. So my point is, I came from when that was a really obscure sport, and I can tell you, as that started to grow. The problem when all the casuals came in is they don't understand the sport. So all the casuals came in and they really did come in. And I know some people still do it to this day, but it's not as much now. The sign that they got really cultured was when they understood what wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu were. Before that, for real, you would go to a bar or look online. And once it started to get popular, there were for real all those comments like, why are they fucking just wrestling around? Stand up, fight like a man. It was all that shit, right? So basically what you learned is the casual fan in MMA just wants people punching each other in the head. They want like Max Holloway's style of fighting, if people know, where you just brawl and you take a punch, you give a punch, but it's exciting, right? If you like casual CS, surely Aurora is one of your favorite teams. That is exactly what I just described. This team just brawls, bro. They are the ultimate like take a punch to give a punch team. Like this team will just play brute force CS on T side. They will just play off their aim. They will just. By the way, one of my favorites actually is sort of like cooking again now is Woxic. It just pure swagger in a clutch, like always goes for the massive big balls play where you think, you won't surely pop out, and then just pop out in front of the smoke and go for a mad hop shot. Like it's actually just here's the thing, it's not the thinking man's team. It's not a team that's super deep. I don't imagine I'm going to see a million breakdowns of all the tactics they're doing, but I think if you're actually watching CS2, where clearly T-side fragging, by the way, is a big deal, and actually having general rifle skill seems like a massive boon in the game, this team's one of the better teams to watch. Like this is a fucking exciting team, and they are peaking now. The reason why I'm going to give them props and put them in the good now is because all the obvious criticisms. Like, think about this. There used to be Vertigo merchants. That map doesn't exist anymore. There used to be Anubis. Their maps aren't in the game anymore. Like, the fact they're actually doing it now, by the way, and I can tell you that last season they struggled to adapt to train. They've actually sort of like fixed their game. Even that implies to me there's some sort of growth's taken place there. Because before, one, I could always, by the way, another team like Mongols that was a playoff joker, I could always guarantee these motherfuckers were going out in the round of 6. Because what you used to do is this, and they used to be one of my favourite teams to bet against, by the way. You wait till they beat teams in the group stage so the odds go crazy to them, and then you bet on the underdog all day long because they just choke the game away. They don't seem to choke as much, and the game just seems like way better. And it can't be that they're relying on those two maps, guys. The maps aren't in the pool anymore. So I'm going to give props to Aurora. There you go. There's my good, Aurora.
I think that will shock a lot of people in a way as well. So I kind of vibe with it. But no, I mean, I was there for 2 of their games, like in the crowd at EWC, and especially that Falcons one. They're legit, man. I think this is a side that, like you said, I mean, we've got so much, especially now. I see people always kind of equate a lot of like the way certain CS teams, I think VP is probably a good example, where it's like Pep Guardiola kind of ruining football. Yeah. It's like VP ruining Counter-Strike. Aurora, the opposite, man. This is like, your Lamine Yamals of the world who just don't care. They've got this flair. They've got this swagger, as you said about them. They play exciting Counter-Strike. I mean, I was there in the crowd for them against that Falcons game. Like some of the rounds they'll pull off, like Wacadia's 1v4 with the dualies on the A side of Train was bonkers. And like, you had no right to get away with 2 out of the 4 there. So like, like it's moments like this where you see this side are actually like super legit. And actually, if you like break down just this season, I think there was definitely holes in this side at the start of the year, and like, you know, consistency obviously being that buzzword that we throw around. But like, if you go from like Cologne onwards, right? Losses of Cologne, Spirit, valid, fair enough. Like, not many teams are beating them right now, right? FaZe, that one was obviously a bit of a curveball, especially with how we know current FaZe. But it's like, it's just Mongols twice. That's it, right? Since then. And, you know, this is a side for me that actually are starting to show that there's real depth about them. They're changing up the map pool, as you were kind of touching on. Of course, especially that Vertigo was such a big knock for this Aurora, of course. And then Eternal Fire side, right? This was such a pocket pick for them, so not having that in the pool anymore really hindered them. They had to change things up. I think they've added a lot of depth to maps in which they were, in the past, I would like to say, like, uncomfortable on or super streaky on at times. And this was a big thing that I always felt kind of affected Aurora. It just felt like this was a side that would have like 2 or 3 decent showings on a map, and then you go into a tournament where it matters most and they'd fall so flat on it, or they'd be figured out. They have a couple of pocket strats that once understood were like super useless then. Now it feels like there's real depth in this side, so it feels like everything's starting to click. And Torres, as we saw, kind of showing his sort of level again against Falcons. That was unbelievable. Wakadia looking really good. I still probably want to see like a little bit more out of Jota, but doesn't play the best roles. And, you know, I'm sort of used to then Jota back from Sangal when he was in the kind of the tier 1.5 and just being mechanically so much better than everybody else he played against, because it was sort of like at home, sort of, you know, part-time plumbers type vibe. Now when he's in this sort of tier 1 level, I think he's still showing he's got these moments. I want to see maybe a little bit more, but if we do get a little bit more, it comes back to the conversation we have about Mongols, where it's like we're talking about their quote-unquote kind of weaker players in the numbers department, kind of like the 2 weakest, obviously Maja, Jota, but it's like if they can then start cleaning up the numbers, they become a super scary side, and they play such a fun brand of Counter-Strike that it's hard not to sort of get behind them at times. When they're on, they're really on. It's such kind of like your FPL demon style of play, where it's like mechanically these guys are so brutal to play against. I mean, even that Maja 1v3 on the A side, I mean, like, again,
that was a big round, mate. I won them again. Yeah,
exactly. And like also as well, like you look at a lot of the other like top 15 teams, like who's actually like kind of giving that a go, right? A lot of teams will be like, I'm just gonna save it, like, you know, this is pretty cooked, I haven't got a chance here. They're set up, bombs dropped on the A side, no chance in hell. And I've got like what, 17 seconds I think when he gets that first kill. It's like rounds like that is where it's like it's hard not to love this, because like they're such a fun team to root for at times. Like when they're on, they're really on. I still think, again, like coming back to like that consistency factor is such a big thing for me. Like if we can just clean up, like even if we're losing, but it's like, you know, there's somewhat closer losses, I can still get behind it. It's like, okay, cool, we know where the ceiling roughly is for the side, but we've like massively elevated the floor. I think that's still the big thing for me, just getting that floor a bit higher for Aurora and not having this sort of massive drop off that we see. But as a whole, I gotta agree, I do like what I'm seeing from Aurora. I caught 2 of the games at EWC, super exciting to watch, especially that Falcons one was super fun.
Yes.
And this is a side for me that do just play like a brand of CS that it's hard not to root, not to get behind, because it's just so audacious, especially in the current meta, which is so stats driven, so numbers driven, percentage style Counter-Strike. Like this is just going back to like raw, I'm better, I'll prove it.
By the way, I didn't even mention that, actually. There's the other thing as well. If you are Xantares, bro, he actually outperformed the Falcon super team. He was actually like the best player in the server. Like, that's big ball shit on its own. Right, go on, Maui, what do you think?
I mean, I didn't want to interrupt our guest, but I did pick up on the fact that Neokai said he was in the audience. So turns out the Falcons fans are paid to be there.
There you go.
Yeah. I guess the thing with Aurora is that I don't know. I guess when I watch back,
I mean, technically, what you should have done, Maui, is just said, you should have just said, who were you cheering for? That would be the fucking bagger question.
You know,
who are you paid to?
Ah, there you go. You was neutral. I thought so. Yeah, sure you were. Okay.
Unironically sat on my own in between both sections. So,
because by the way, the joke is you can't win either way. If you say Falcons, you're a shill piece of shit. If you say Aurora, then you just hate Falcons as well. You know, whatever. And also the Turkish fans will get you. So.
The staff section, we had our own tables, so it was quite
fair
nice.
Fair enough.
He would, if he sits on the Aurora section, he's fired for what he's doing at EWC. So that's unfortunate. But no, just kidding. Just jokes. No, I guess I watched it more in the context of Falcons choking some of those big moments to the Aurora players. So maybe internally I wasn't giving enough credit to Aurora for those. But I guess I haven't taken a close enough look at them to see if they've really updated their strats at EWC. But everything I saw from them at the earlier tournaments this year, or not this year, even this season, still kind of felt sort of like the same style where, yes, you guys are accurately describing that it was more brawly, that it's kind of like a 4-1, they're just gonna, even sometimes just all 5 of their players are just trying to push into a bomb site at the same time. They're not really a finesse team, okay? That's why, even though the Mongols and Aurora are both, national teams or whatever, they really play so differently from each other. Sometimes the Mongols are trying to barrel into a site, but it's pretty rare. Usually there's a little bit more style or grace for what they're trying to accomplish in terms of just multiple macro elements working simultaneously to keep the enemies guessing as to what's happening next, or just, there's a lot more of a surprise factor. And Neokai's right. Aurora, they're pretty unapologetically themselves when they're trying to get into a round. They're just going to try to brute force their way through the wall that is being erected by the opposing team. I don't really get... I personally don't find the Aurora style as interesting to look at from a top-down perspective, but in terms of the visceral feeling of consuming their games live, it is fun. It's exciting. I know what's happening next all the time. So, in fact, I probably find that if I were an observer, it's probably a lot easier to observe an Aurora game than it is for me to try to press the 1s and 2s on a Mongols game where 2 guys are fighting on 2 extremities at the same time, and making everybody a little bit confused as to, is this good Counter-Strike? Does this have a reason to it? Aurora, there's definitely a reason to it. I don't know if there's much rhyming. It's just simply belting.
Put it this way, in the same way, I'll give you the analogy. When they used to have those flawed Na'Vi lineups back in the day with Flamey and fucking Zeus and Edward, who were all like questionable at times, and it really was just simple. And then Electronic was like his Robin to his Batman, but Simple had to carry the game. The best thing about it was, you knew on T-side, the motherfucking observer's going to be on Simple all the time, aren't you? Spoiler, when you do a game of Aurora, observer, watch Antares at the entry. Then when we get to the clutch, switch to Woxic. It's fucking obvious, isn't it? Like on TT side, maybe find the right Jota spot on the right map. It is pretty clear. Because here's the thing. Here's how I can tell you that nationality shit does affect things. Anyone who wants to hate on Aurora, because they have really obnoxious fans, and I don't know, maybe like needing a Magic fan or something. All you need to do is think of this for a second. Do a thought experiment. Like Maui's from NA. Bro, if this was an NA team who played identically to this, I tell you what, you'd be a fucking fan of them, mate. You might criticize the style. Maybe not, but you'd be a fucking massive fan because here's what they have. Because they're brawly, they have a massive puncher's chance, is the saying from MMA. Like, they can get you and clip you. And the thing about that style of play, by the way, it's one of the most classic things in the history of Counter-Strike. That brawly Counter-Strike, unless you're an amazing team tactically and control-wise, you get drawn into that style. You start to play that style too, and it becomes their fight, to use the combat sports terminology. And I tell you what, when they draw you into their fight, that's why they can beat a Vitality or scare like a Spirit or so. Like the difference is, I think here's what's funny. I think in their own way, they're actually more intimidating to the top teams than the Mongols were. I think the Mongols seem more like you can watch the demo, you can get a sense of what they're going to do, you can just counter that. Maybe you're better players. Like, I actually think Aurora has like an extra spice to them that maybe people don't appreciate. Okay. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.